game clock showed less than a minute remaining, and Duke held a 6-point lead. This was the 2025 Final Four. Their opponent, Houston. The moment was theirs. But in the span of 60 seconds, one of the most painful collapses in program history unfolded. The lead vanished. The season ended, leaving a wound that now defines the year to come. The star of that team, freshman phenom Cooper Flagg, departed as the presumptive #1 overall NBA draft pick, ending his historic National Player of the Year campaign. He led his team in all 5 major statistical categories during that heartbreaking Final Four loss, the first player to do so since 1986, with Flagg and the entire starting 5 gone to the NBA. A program defined by championships faces a dramatic void. The central question now is not who arrives, but who remains. Can the transformation of 2 former role players, Caleb Foster and Isaiah Evans, deliver Duke basketball its next national championship? Can the story of development and redemption overcome the gravitational pull of the transfer portal and the ghost of a generational talent? Foster and Evans are now the anchors of an entirely new program identity. A massive responsibility placed on 2 guards who averaged just 6.3 and 6.8 points per game, respectively, across their first seasons. The stage is set for a defining test of Duke's culture. Duke's legacy is built on 5 national championships and a culture of relentless expectation. But the program has always relied on more than just one-and-done talent. It requires a specific kind of internal development. For Foster and Evans, the blueprints for transformation are clear. Take the case of Caleb Foster. A 6'5" junior guard, Foster enters his 3rd season positioned as Duke's most experienced backcourt player. His first 2 campaigns saw him average 6.3 points, 2 rebounds, and 1.7 assists, a statistical trajectory that is strikingly familiar. Foster's numbers suggest a parallel with DeMarcus Nelson. Nelson averaged only 6.6 points across his first 2 years at Duke. But as a junior, he made the leap, exploding for 14.1 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. Nelson became an elite 2-way player. Foster must now demonstrate that same internal acceleration. Then there is Isaiah Evans. As a freshman, the 6'6" guard from Fayetteville emerged as one of the nation's most lethal 3-point threats. Connecting on 62 3-pointers at an elite 41.6% clip, Evans showed the foundational skill of a primary scorer. His path mirrors 2 recent Duke stars. Luke Kennard saw his 3-point percentage jump from 32% as a freshman to 43.8% as a sophomore, raising his scoring average to 19.5 points per game. Grayson Allen made an even more explosive leap, going from 4.4 points to 21.6 points as a sophomore. Evans' established 41.6% shooting baseline provides him an even stronger foundation than Kennard started with. But unlike those comparisons, Foster and Evans are not stepping into supporting roles. They are being asked to become the primary architects of a championship contender, a transformation that now falls squarely upon the shoulders of head coach Jon Scheyer. Jon Scheyer is now entering his 4th season, having just guided Duke to the Final Four. But that success came with a devastating cost: the psychological burden of the Houston collapse. As he builds his 4th roster, Scheyer faces a critical choice that will define his coaching legacy. In April and May 2025, Duke lost its entire starting 5 to the NBA draft. Flagg, along with Khan Kanupu and Kaman Maluak, were projected top 10 picks. Tyrese Proctor and Sion James were expected second-round selections. The roster was decimated. In the ensuing weeks, Shire made a philosophical statement. Duke notably avoided aggressive engagement with the transfer portal. The core strategy was clear: development over transactional solutions. This decision placed immediate, intense pressure on the returning players. The retention of Foster and Evans, both of whom believe in Shire's system, is seen as a validation of the program's culture. But it also raises the stakes for the returning sophomores, including Cameron Boozer, the number 3 national recruit from the previous class. The success of Foster and Evans will be the ultimate test for this philosophy. In an era where the transfer portal provides immediate talent, Shire's commitment to internal development is a gamble. If they fail to make the required leap, the program will face pressure to recalibrate its foundational approach to roster construction. The decision to retain rather than recruit shifts the entire burden of Duke's championship viability to the 2 players who carry the memory of the season's painful end. The Final Four collapse is more than just a memory. It is the central psychological conflict of the 2025-26 season. Duke was leading Houston by 6 points with under a minute remaining. To lose that game represents a haunting experience that both Foster and Evans must process and overcome. As returning players who witnessed the collapse, they carry the burden of redemption while simultaneously filling the leadership void. The immediate pressure is immense. Foster, the junior, must transform from a rotational reserve, having moved to a reserve role after starting the first 7 games of his sophomore season, into an elite floor leader. He is a 6'5", 197-pound guard with known defensive potential, but he must now demonstrate consistent offensive execution. Evans, the sophomore, has the difficult task of becoming Duke's primary scoring weapon. His 41.6% three-point shooting as a freshman was a foundational piece, but he only averaged 13.7 minutes per game and started just 3 contests. He must now expand his game from a lethal perimeter threat into a complete 3-level scorer, capable of creating for himself and others. His decision to test the NBA draft waters before returning signaled a confidence in his ability to make that leap. They face an almost impossible benchmark, replacing the production of Cooper Flagg, whose freshman averages of 19.2 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 4.2 assists set an impossibly high standard. But the need for on-court leadership is not the only evolution happening in Durham. A deeper, more holistic development is now central to the Duke program. The transformation of Foster and Evans is taking place within an evolving institutional environment at Duke. The program's history is complex. Integration of the basketball team was delayed until C.B. Claiborne became Duke's first black basketball player in 1965. This context informs Duke's ongoing institutional engagement with its own racial history, branded as the Black and Blue Initiative. Beyond the court, players are now expected to develop a broader perspective. I want them to be able to articulate themselves on complex topics, said Dr. Javier Wallace, who teaches courses on race, sport, and education. So I want them to be able to articulate themselves and what they believe outside of the constraints of media relations. This holistic approach to development contrasts with earlier eras, creating a more challenging and complete developmental environment. The focus is not just on basketball performance. The players are being asked to become thoughtful leaders in a dynamic social landscape. This commitment to culture building is a defining characteristic of Shire's program. Foster and Evans represent a new kind of modern college athlete, one who has eschewed the transactional nature of the transfer portal for a chance at internal growth, both as players and as people. Their success is now intrinsically linked to the validation of Shire's developmental model. The challenge is immediate. Championship expectations remain unchanged despite the roster upheaval. The timeline for their development has been dramatically compressed. The 2025 to 26 season is more than a single year in Duke basketball history. It is a critical juncture that will define the legacy of Jon Scheyer and the philosophy of a blue blood program in the transfer portal era. Foster and Evans are now the living proof of concept. Their ability to provide scoring, playmaking, and defensive stability will dictate whether Duke can immediately contend for an ACC championship. Their success will validate Shai's patience and his conviction that culture and internal growth can compete with the immediacy of the portal. If they make the leap, they will establish a new blueprint for elite programs, one that successfully balances the recruitment of one-and-done freshmen with the multi-year development of homegrown talent. If they struggle, the program may be forced to recalibrate its entire approach to roster construction for years to come. Ultimately, this narrative extends beyond wins and losses. It addresses a fundamental question about modern college basketball. Can elite programs still build around player development when immediate, experienced talent is readily available through transfers? For Caleb Foster and Isaiah Evans, the stage is set. Their evolution from supporting players to primary stars will determine Duke's post-Flagg identity, establish Shire's coaching legacy, and write a new chapter in the ongoing debate over the soul of college basketball. The healing process from the Final Four collapse requires them to lead Duke past one of its most painful losses. Their journey now defines whether resilience and internal growth are still the foundations of a championship team.